Bonjour and welcome to Cooking with Madame Peters. Today we are going to be making a regional specialty from southern France called ratatouille. You've probably heard of this because of the Disney film, but it is a really great summer dish to make, and it especially holds a spot near and dear to my heart because it reminds me of the time that I spent abroad when I lived in southern France when I was in college. So there's quite a bit of prep work with this dish. So I'm going to tell you a little bit how we're going to prepare it, and then I'm going to get to business cutting all of these vegetables up. So it's a three-part process where I'm going to be slicing up 2 zucchinis. These are called courgettes in French, and also some people in English, I believe in England, they actually call zucchini courgette as well. And then I've got 2 yellow squash. The recipe calls for 2 eggplants, but generally the eggplants here in the United States are really large. And so I just did 1 and I figured I would cut them in half. You really want to have kind of the same ratio. And then I've got 6 Roma tomatoes. The reason I'm using Roma is because it's approximately the same size as the zucchini and the yellow squash, so it makes for a really nice presentation on top. So once I get all of these veggies sliced, I will be making a sauce. So then the sauce will go on the bottom, followed by all of the sliced veggies, and then we're going to make an herb topping as well. Okay, so now all of our vegetables are all chopped up. So I've got the zucchini here, the courgette, the eggplant, in French we call this aubergine. We have the yellow squash, which is just some courgettes jaunes, and the tomates, the tomatoes. Now, all of these are really common ingredients in southern France, in Provence, and so they're really great in the summertime in Wisconsin as well because all of these ingredients are readily available. There's a couple of tips that I'd like to help you out when you're chopping up all of these veggies. The first thing is that you really want to make sure that you try to get them as consistent as possible, like how thick you make them. And then also that you make them approximately the same size. The eggplant was really kind of tricky because it was such a large eggplant, so I kind of cut it up and I kind of made it like this. So I'm hoping that it'll kind of lay nicely all together, so it'll kind of be 4 all together. The other thing when you're cutting up tomatoes, I find that if you use a serrated knife, like a bread knife, it actually works a little bit better. So those are just a few little tips to help you along your way when you're chopping up your veggies. So the next step is to make the sauce. So in order to make the sauce, I'm going to use a yellow bell pepper and a red bell pepper. So in French we call these les poivrons. And when you cut into a bell pepper, what I usually do is I usually start on the side of the top here, and I kind of cut this off first, and then I have a bowl or I have a disposal, so I just take all of these seeds here and I rip them on out and I just discard those. You can also, if you compost, you can just put those in your compost pile and that will work as well. So I'm just going to take those. Now, when you are cutting, once you've got all of your seeds out, I'm going to dice this pepper. So when I dice it, I find that for me, and I'm not a trained professional, but I find for me it works better if I have the inside facing up towards my knife. I find that it just cuts a little bit better. And when you're cutting, so that you don't chop your fingers off, also really important, actually my daughter Rihanna was helping me cut all of these, and I was like, oh my goodness, I thought I need to teach people how to cut because I was really freaking out that she was going to cut her fingers off. So it's great if you can grasp onto whatever food you're cutting, and you're going to kind of tuck your fingers underneath, and the knife blade is actually going to come here so that you're not doing this and cutting your fingers off. So I'm going to hold my piece of pepper, my poivron, like so, and then I'm just going to cut down, I'm going to slice this way. Now I have no idea if this is actually the way a chef would tell you to cut. Probably not, but like I said, I'm not a trained professional and this seems to work pretty well for me. I'm sure you'll figure out what works best for you too. But I like to cut it into strips like this, And then I take all of them together like this, and kind of the same thing. I'm gonna grab them, tuck my fingers under, and then I'm just gonna run my knife through this way, making sure that the knife blade, you can see, is coming on my knuckles, and that my fingertips are not exposed. So I'm gonna cut up I'm gonna keep on going with this. I'm gonna cut up the yellow bell pepper, the red bell pepper, I'm gonna cut up the onion, and then I'm also gonna do 4 cloves of garlic. So yeah, I'll meet you back here in a sec. Hoofda! Okay, so in this bowl, I have my chopped up onion. I am super sensitive to onions, so even just cutting up one onion just makes my eyes water like crazy. So stay tuned for a French onion soup where I have to cut up like just a whole ton of them. I think I'm gonna be a mess that day. But then I've got the red pepper and the yellow pepper in there as well. So you can just see all of these ingredients are so beautiful, all of the different colors. So now the next thing that we're gonna do is we are going to mince up 4 cloves of garlic. So this is a head of garlic. I'm not sure if you've ever worked with garlic before, but when you wanna do this, we're gonna break it apart here. So just kind of go in here with my fingers and break it up. And then inside, these are the cloves of garlic. So I want to get 4 cloves. I'm just going to put the extras. Again, you can put it in a bowl and throw it away, or if you have a garbage disposal, you can put it in the sink, whatever your family does. So I'm going to get my 4 cloves of garlic here. And I really like garlic, so I'm going to choose 4 big cloves of garlic. These are really large. I'm just going to kind of push the rest to the side here for the moment. And what I like to do to get the cloves of garlic, so it's got this film on it. It's kind of like an onion, and it's kind of tricky. But if you will take your knife and just go along each end and chop those off, and then if you take your clove, I'm going to put my knife on the side like this, and I'm just going to bang it with the palm of my hand like that. It's going to smush it a little bit, and it's going to, apparently I didn't do it hard enough. There it goes. You smush it, and then this outside peels off very easily. So I'm going to do that with all of my cloves, and then I'm going to mince them. If you don't know what mince means, it's a way that you cut. The word, it actually is mince in French. And when you mince it, you're basically just cutting it in very, very small, tiny little skinny chunks. So I'm just going to mince like this. And remember the tip that I talked about from before when you're cutting, that you really want to make sure, so that you don't cut your fingers, that you grab the hunk of garlic with your hands, tuck your fingers underneath, and then run your knife so that it's going on your knuckles and not chopping off your fingertips. And then you come back this way, and again, just mince, 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 cut it up, fine little pieces like that. And then if you even want to, you can even go more and kind of do one of these things. So I've got 2 more cloves of garlic to do, and then I'm going to get some hot oil going in the pan so that I can start my sauce. I had a little bit of camera trouble at this point, so I'm just going to have to tell you what I did to prepare my sauce. First, I sauteed the onion, red and yellow peppers, and minced garlic in 2 tablespoons of olive oil over medium heat. I seasoned it with salt and pepper, and sauteed them for about 10 minutes until they were soft. Then I added a 28-ounce can of crushed tomatoes. I heated it all thoroughly. Finally, I removed it from the heat and added 8 to 10 fresh basil leaves, chopped. I transferred my sauce to a glass baking dish. Next, I carefully placed my sliced tomatoes, yellow squash, zucchini, and eggplant over the top of my sauce. Finally, I made the herb seasoning to go on top. In a small bowl, I mixed another 8 to 10 fresh basil leaves chopped with 1 teaspoon of minced garlic, 2 tablespoons of fresh chopped parsley, 2 teaspoons of fresh thyme, 4 tablespoons of olive oil, and salt and pepper to taste. I drizzled this all on the top of my sliced veggies and tomato sauce. It smells really good. I'm going to pull this ratatouille out of the oven. And now I'm just going to let it sit for about 20 minutes, and then I'll serve it up and try some. The ratatouille has it's cooled down a little bit, and so now I'm going to serve it up and try it. It looks very delicious. Okay, I've got some good herbs in there, seasonings, spices. Again, this is the specialty from southern France. We have tomatoes, huile d'olive, olive oil, basilic, basil, du thym, thyme, des oignons, onions, peppers, des poivrons, all kinds of good stuff. Okay, so it's really good. Roasted vegetables in its finest.